The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he would send the crowds away. After sending the crowds away, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, while the boat, by now far out on the lake, was battling with a heavy sea, for there was a headwind. In the fourth watch of the night he went towards them walking on the lake, and when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It is a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. And at once Jesus called out to them, saying, "Courage, it is I, do not be afraid." It was Peter who answered, "Lord," he said, "if it is you, tell me to come to you across the water." "Come," said Jesus. Then Peter got out of the boat and started walking towards Jesus across the water, but as soon as he felt the force of the wind, he took fright and began to sink. "Lord, save me," he cried. Jesus put out his hand at once and held him. "Man of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And as they got into the boat, the wind dropped. The men in the boat bowed down before him and said, "Truly you are the Son of God." The Gospel of the Lord. Hello to each of you who may be watching as I share this reflection with you. I'm very conscious as I speak. This has again been a very difficult week for our world community in relation to the corona situation, and also to particular places, and I think of the people of Lebanon and Beirut, a country already in distress for various reasons, and then this terrible explosion that occurred that has impacted on the lives of so many. So we hold the people of Lebanon in our prayers and thoughts, and remember the whole world community at this very difficult time. And here in Australia, we're very conscious. We're all affected, but especially the people of Victoria are in our thoughts and prayers at this time. Quite understandably, there's been a lot of attention to the importance of people's mental state at this present time, the danger of loss of hope, and what we can do to support one another in internally coping with what we're facing together. That discussion is very important, and the ways we can look out for one another, especially those who are suffering greatly because of their personal circumstances at this time. So the importance of mutual compassion, of that sense of we help one another, in a sense a softer attitude of people among one another at this time is very important. We're people by nature in our humanity who, in a sense, learn a lot through story. The experiences of characters, people, events, often is a far more powerful way that we learn than just being given a talk or a lecture on a particular theme. We enjoy movies, not just for the entertainment value, but because they reflect back to us in the stories something of ourselves. Similarly for novels. So to read a novel, to watch a movie which deals with conflict, with happiness, with love, with whatever is very much a part of the human experience, is often far better than being lectured to on these qualities. And so a great part of the scriptures is the story of women and men in what happens to them, of characters, personalities, interactions. Certainly in the Jewish scriptures, the Old Testament, and then in our Christian scriptures, most especially in the Gospels. So today we have a great story, one we've probably been aware of since our childhood and been fascinated by being out there on the water, being called to walk on the water, which is outside our normal human experience, and then this problem of submerging because of lack of confidence, and then Jesus coming to heal the situation. So again, these stories have a power because the movements internally within each of these characters, and today we're talking about Peter, reflect something about what happens in our own lives. in the full liturgy of the word that's being offered to us today, this is supported by a story also from the Old Testament in the story of Elijah. But I'll focus particularly on the experience of Peter. In this incident of his being called, in a sense, to overcome fear, and he has that confidence, and we can think of times in our lives where we are full of confidence, where we feel strong, a sense of God's presence, a sense that all is right in the world. And they're great, and we accomplish so much in those spaces. However, we'd also have to acknowledge that sometimes the shadow side of that is being blind to our vulnerabilities and our limitations. And in that blindness, they can get the better of us. And in that very short experience that Peter has, we see that. And he begins to doubt. He begins to lack confidence and forget the call of Jesus, the presence of the Lord with him. And he starts to flounder. But that's not the end of the story, that the Lord's there helping him, reminding him in his actions what he had just said to all of them: courage, do not be afraid. We have all of that inside of each one of us: confidence and lack thereof, moments of great faith and real doubt. All of that's part of the human experience. And one of the things I think the gospel is calling us to really pay attention to in the depth of who we are, at the deepest part of who we are, is courage, do not be afraid. I think this very much relates to my words a few moments ago, because we live in a time and a situation where fear is very real, where anxiety is very much felt by each one of us. So from a faith point of view, not being removed from that difficulty, but hearing at the depth of who we are those words: courage, do not be afraid, I am with you. Finally, this week that we're in, and the Sunday concludes, in Australia's National Vocations Awareness Week. It's very much built around the annual celebration of the Feast of St. Mary MacKillop, which was yesterday, August the 8th, Saturday, August the 8th. We remember our common Christian vocation by baptism, that all of us, no matter what our life circumstance, are to deepen in our own relationship with Jesus, a sense of God's presence in our life, and that is not kept to ourselves, that we have a responsibility to share that with others. And then the actual Vocations Awareness Week reflects particularly on those adult commitments. Certainly vocation applies to us whatever age, whether we're very young, very elderly, or somewhere in between. But there is a particular focus on the adult commitments of that baptismal vocation being lived in a particular way. Marriage and family life. A life that may be single but is very much rich in commitment to service. And the commitment to ordained ministry or a religious life vocation. All of those important. So I just want to reflect on three aspects which is important to all of those. First of all, vocation's not a matter of compulsion, but is a matter of attraction. If I can use the language of falling in love, that our falling in love with Christ is what, in a sense, gives rise to a vocation in whichever way it's lived in. Our attraction to live that discipleship in a particular way. So I think that's important, that when you're talking, for example, about ordained ministry or religious life, it's not about function. It's about an attraction based on, and this is the second point, a relationship. And therefore that fostering of a relationship from our earliest days is important in terms of our sense of service to one another, our sense of prayer, our sense of that we carry one another in the body of Christ. And that's the third point, that vocation is not in isolation, but links us to community, links us to a sense that our lives are for others, that the ways we enrich in a personal way is not just for ourselves, but in service of others. I wish you well on this Sunday. Pope Francis often concludes his words with the words "Bon pranzo," but that for this Sunday that each of us enjoys to the degree we're able to, the company of each other. Stay safe in these times, stay well, and God bless you.